Thank you. So before we begin, please allow me to state some housekeeping guidelines. So if the volume is too low, kindly check your system volume. I'd also like to let us know that the webinar is being recorded and will be available on our YouTube channel, the Nigerian-British Chamber of Commerce, NBCC. And to comment and have discussions, do use the chat icon. And remember that your questions should be submitted via the Q&A icon, as only these questions will be answered during the Q&A sessions. So I thank you all for listening. And please, at this point, join me as I welcome our President and Chairman of Council, Mrs. Bisi Adeyemi, who is ably represented by Mr. Ray Ateli, Deputy President, NBCC, to give the welcome address. Mr. Ateli, please.
Thank you very much, Deputy Chair, Mr. Onolaja. This is a welcome address by the President and Chairman of Council, Mrs. Bisi Adeyemi, who is unavoidably absent, but I am standing in her stead, and so I am doing this on her behalf. Once again, good morning, Council members and all members of the Nigeria-British Chamber of Commerce who are tuned in at this moment. Good morning as well, distinguished guests, speakers, discussants, and ladies and gentlemen participating. I am pleased to welcome you to the NBCC MSME Business Forum. Let me quickly introduce the Nigerian-British Chamber of Commerce. This chamber is the foremost chamber of commerce in Nigeria, established in 1977 to promote trade and investment between Nigeria and Britain. The chamber currently has over 400 corporate members from diverse sectors of the economy. We are an international affiliate of the British Chamber of Commerce, which gives us access to a network of 53 chambers of commerce across the United Kingdom and the Commonwealth, and 71 other international affiliates around the world. The micro, small, and medium-scale enterprises sector is the backbone of major economies, including those of Nigeria and Britain. It is as well an important contributor to economic development, employment generation, and growth in export. In recognition of MSME's contribution to the Nigerian economy, we are pleased to have our members here today to celebrate this week with you and to explore critical issues in order to build a stronger platform for this sectorial group of our membership. The Nigerian Bureau of Statistics stated that the SMEs in Nigeria have contributed about 48% to our total GDP in the last 5 years. With a total number of about 17.4 million, SMEs account for about 50% of industrial jobs and nearly 90% of the manufacturing sector in terms of the number of enterprises, that is. Though significant, this growth was achieved, but a lot still has to be done. This sector has been hard hit in the past 2 years for obvious reasons, occasioned by COVID-19 pandemic. Notwithstanding, the sector has displayed vigorous business dynamism and has become a catalyst for innovation. Some sectors come to mind. One of the biggest challenges facing MSMEs is a lack of accessible, adequate, and affordable financing that prevent them from growing, increasing productivity and competitiveness, and from investing in innovation, including their capacity to embrace digital solutions. Another challenge relates to SMEs' incapacity to adapt sustainable practices increasingly requested by large firms as they seek greater transparency and accountability in their own sustainability efforts. SMEs don't always have the relevant knowledge, human resources, or financial capacity to invest in these areas, risking their competitiveness and integration into larger regional or global value chains. Research shows that investing and enabling micro, small, and medium-scale enterprises to fulfill their development potential can have significant contributions to 60% of the SDG targets, including those related to SDG 8, which is all about promoting sustained, inclusive, sustainable economic growth, full and productive employment, and decent work for all, as well as SDG 9, which is about building resilient infrastructure, promoting inclusive and sustainable industrialization, and fostering innovation, among others. As businesses and governments look towards economic recovery, MSMEs will play a significant role in providing employment and innovative solutions to pressing challenges. Access to a diverse range of financing instruments will be crucial for continued contribution to our sustainable and inclusive growth. In this regard, we are pleased to have Tolu Oyekon, Rukia El-Rufai, Chidozie Ezike, and Bumi Khalid here with us today to discuss how to create long-term value through ESG practices. The Chamber is all about creating an international network, connecting various actors to foster shared narratives and common goals in a neutral environment, amongst other things that we do. Without further ado, I'm delighted to introduce the moderator of today's event, Dr. Joel Dada, Chairman, MSME Committee of our Chamber, and the Managing Director of Mid-City Associates. Dr. Dada graduated from Ahmadu Bello University in Zaria with a BSc in Economics. He also holds a master's degree in marketing management from the University of Lagos. He's a member of the Advertising Practitioners Council of Nigeria and a fellow of the National Institute of Marketing of Nigeria. He's an alumnus of the famous Kellogg School of Management, Northwestern University, Illinois, USA. He started his career with UAC in 1983 and held several positions at various times as product group manager, export business manager, divisional ice cream director, and acting divisional managing director, fast foods. Dr. Dada holds a doctorate degree in business administration, is currently the chairman, board of directors of Livestock Feeds PLC, a subsidiary of UAC, and he sits on the council of the Nigeria-British Chamber of Commerce, where he chairs the micro, small, and medium enterprises sectorial group. I thank the MSME committee for putting this together, and I look forward with our members listening. We all look forward to your interesting thoughts on sustainability and how MSMEs can run their businesses in full compliance while not failing to make profit. Once again, I thank you for listening, And let us now listen to our discussants, ably piloted by Dr. Judah. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, DP Ray Atelli. Very, very concise and deep. Thank you for those welcome remarks. Again, council members of the NBCC, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, you're welcome to this discussion. As has been mentioned, every organization is exposed to one risk or the other. And what ESG does is to help manage these risks and challenges as they arise. A case in point has been alluded in the president's speech to COVID-19 pandemic, which is an example of such risks that must be well managed. And for MSMEs, it's a journey that has just started. And that's why this forum this morning will be discussing how this journey can be well managed. We have distinguished panelists, as has been mentioned, and permit me to just quickly introduce them before they do a deep dive into the discussions this morning. First is Tolu Oyekon, who is the Managing Director and Partner of the Boston Consulting Group, BCG. Tolu is a seasoned management consultant with global experience across North America, Europe, and Africa. He also has worked across multiple industry sectors, and he has deep expertise when it comes to issues of strategy and operations, particularly growth, mergers and acquisition, lean manufacturing, and network optimization. Tolu is a core member of the Corporate Finance and Strategy Global Advantage, Social Impact, Financial Institutions, and Energy Practices. Tolu is currently focused on development and strives to find opportunities for collaboration amongst private, public, and social stakeholders. And he is particularly interested in key areas of energy transition, education, financial inclusion, and health. Prior to joining BCG, Tolu worked as an engineer supporting equipment and process development for global material science company. The next panelist that we have is Mrs. Rukayat El Rufai, who is a partner in PwC. Mrs. Rufai is a chartered accountant and holds an MPA from the prestigious London School of Economics and Political Science, as well as the Hershey School of Governance in Berlin. Rukaya has many years of experience in consulting and blue chip companies in Nigeria, telecommunication industries, and so on, where she held many roles. As a partner, Mrs. Rufai leads sustainability and climate change practice and public sector risk assurance service. She also supports new services and offerings across lines of service in different industries. Our next panelist is Bumi Kole Daudu, who is an assistant director of SMIDAN at the Lagos office. Bumi is a self-driven enterprise development officer with over 24 years work experience. And he graduate of microbiology with a master's in palynology and an MBA, including a doctorate degree in business administration. Kole Daudu Olubumi is also a certified trainer for International Organization on Migration, IOM. Bumi excels in a fast-paced, challenging environment and possesses excellent interpersonal communication and presentation skills. He also has in-depth knowledge about service delivery, organizational change management, and tutoring. He has successfully delivered business solutions and projects across different nations, which includes manufacturing, maritime, oil and gas, and educational services. The fourth discussant is Chidozie Uriel Ezike. Dr. Chidozie Ezekiel Ezike is an astute enterprise risk manager with local and global certifications awarded by prestigious organizations such as Moody's and Ryman. He is an astute enterprise risk manager with local and global certifications. Dr. Ezike is an alumnus of the Premier University of Ibadan and the University of Lagos, where he bagged his degrees in sociology and PhD in economics, respectively. His research interest is mainly in the area of ESG, and that's why he's here to support us today. Dr. Ezike has over a decade of banking experience, cutting across multiple functional areas such as risk management, economic intelligence, and research and corporate planning. He also has experience in the area of strategy and currently doubles as a head of environmental and social risk management and head of risk measurement departments at the UBA, United Bank for Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome our distinguished panelists. I will ask Tolu Oyekon to set the ball rolling by giving us his views on how to understand and seize the strategic initiatives of ESG for the growth of micro, small, and medium-scale enterprises. Tolu, over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Dada, for the kind introduction, and thank you, DP Ateli, for the introduction before that. Good morning again, everyone. Members of the panelists, distinguished guests, and other members of the audience. It truly is a privilege to speak today on this topic of understanding and seizing the strategic initiative of ESG for the growth of MSMEs. If you put it simply, we're really saying, why ESG makes business sense for MSMEs. The topic is not one that we can fully unpack, honestly, within the 10 minutes that I have in the short term that we have here. But I'll take an initial stab at it and hopefully begin this ongoing conversation on this very important topic. Today, I would propose to address the topic by answering three questions. One, why are ESG considerations important in business? Number two would be, why are MSMEs an important category of the business ecosystem, and why are they important in this ESG discourse? And number three would be, how can MSMEs incorporate ESG considerations into the way they operate their businesses? And I'll try to answer these very, very quickly at a high level, and happy to sort of discuss even more in the Q&A section. So why are ESG considerations important in business? ESG seeks to address fundamental factors that enable long-term sustainability. The way I think about it is really a trade-off often between short-termism and sort of being sustainable in the long haul. The environmental factors, the E, are typically concerned with how do we conserve the natural world so that we can continue to benefit today and then on an ongoing basis. It asks us to pay attention to things such as pollution, overconsumption of our existing natural resources, waste management, and other things. The social factors, the S, is typically concerned with how we treat each other as human beings, the relationship we hold as businesses with others. Do we have employee-friendly practices? Are we constantly operating in a way that seeks to increase customer satisfaction? Do we have good relationship with the communities we operate in? Are the values of the organization themselves aligned with the common core values that we've all aligned on as a society? Where we're paying attention to human rights and labor standards. The governance, the G, the governance factors, they're typically concerned with whether we are running our businesses according to established standards for running good businesses. And there are various topics, that are essential here, but, this goes into things around our responsibility to our shareholders, our responsibility to align with rules of law and so on. Now, we are in Nigeria and we're talking about small businesses. Some of these topics may sound like they're unnecessary. They may sound like they are superfluous. They may sound like they're not relevant within the context that we're in. But, research that we've conducted at BCG and others have conducted actually show that businesses that do well in delivering total societal impact, which is the aggregate of the impact you have on the society, which is another way of saying, companies that pay attention to ESG, they tend to outperform their peers, right? Business profitability tends to be much better. We've seen figures of greater than 10% of profitability versus their peers. And investors also look at them better, right? So businesses that actually pay attention to this get higher valuations, get better investments, able to get more money into their businesses. So they actually perform better. So it's not just talk. Even in the Nigerian context, businesses that pay attention actually are better companies, even in the short term. Maybe to put it tangibly, think about, if you were, for example, a business that pays strong attention and strong consideration to your people, the business may be responsible, may be recognized as a good place to work, right? Being recognized as a good place to work would in turn allow you to attract the right talent, with lower attrition, lower human resource costs. If your people, if you are now able to hire the right talent, the best people, the happiest people, your productivity will increase. People will come up with better ideas, new ideas. You can innovate with better products, which could in turn lead to strong revenue performance because you're able to sell more and you're even able to sell at higher prices than your peers. So these things are very tangible things that, in fact, they're not, esoteric, if you will. So why are ESG considerations important to businesses? I would suggest that they are important because they actually link to the bottom line and the performance of businesses. Your business can actually be better if you pay attention to ESG. The second question I wanted to touch on is, very quickly, why are MSMEs an important category in the ESG discourse? And I think one reason is because MSMEs play a very important role in, as the primary employer in the country. In fact, I think GP Ateli mentioned some of this in his introduction. It is estimated that there are about 70 million, roughly, people employed in Nigeria today, and MSMEs employ about 80% of this 70 million. So that's over 55 million people. These MSME employers and MSMEs and employees jointly contribute about 50% of the GDP of Nigeria. That's over $200 billion. So, if 80% of the workforce do not think about ESG, then we may be building actually toward a country that's not sustainable. the chances become higher that we could be destroying the natural world around us. The chances are higher that, you know, we are being negligent and not putting the right worker safeguards in, and so, we're putting our people into dangerous working situations and environment. The chances are higher that more businesses will fail because you're not sort of putting the right governance and the right business practices in place. And we talk a lot about unemployment. This will continue to be high. And so MSMEs, in fact, probably need to pay attention to this just as much as bigger companies, because the impact of not doing so actually has a larger implication on a larger part of the population. I think another reason why MSMEs should pay attention is because MSMEs are actually the drivers of innovation and additional job creation in the country, in a lot of countries, but also in Nigeria. With the increased focus on ESG and total societal impact, there are opportunities now to create new job classes that could be directly linked to some of these trends. For example, let's talk about waste, right? So Nigeria is estimated that Nigeria has one of the poorest track records when it comes to waste management. And this poor track record we can sort of turn around as an opportunity to create jobs. Within waste is plastics. If you think about plastics, the plastic recycling business, 1 ton of recycled plastic could be valued as high as $1,000 per ton, right? It is estimated that Nigeria generates over 750,000 tons of plastic per year. And so, from a social sustainability, environmental standpoint, if we focus on this kind of sector, if we fund this kind of sector, if my math is right, we're talking about a market with output that could be valued at over $750 million a year and thousands of jobs per year. And plastic recycling is not the only one within this sort of like waste opportunity. So MSMEs are important in the ESG conversation because they are primary employers, but also because they are the innovators and they're the ones that can seize the opportunity, to improve our environment. So the third and final question I wanted to answer is so how can MSMEs incorporate ESG considerations into the way they operate their businesses? I'm a simple person. I like to sort of think simply, and I think one maybe straightforward way for MSMEs to think about this is to try to take a broader view on who their stakeholders are. Who are the key stakeholders for each of your businesses? And then as you make decisions, think about how business decisions explicitly address the potential concerns of these stakeholders. So if you take a small business that manufactures pure water, for example, right? This business should not only care about how much money the business owner and the investors are able to sort of make, but should also be considerate about the cleanliness of the water that they sell and the risk of waterborne illnesses to the end consumer. They should think about how their pricing affects the ability of the person that's selling, pure water in Ojota to make a living, right? How the production processes affect the water table, either because of the depletion from the well that they are drawing their water from, or from the potential pollution from their purification process. You should think about whether they are paying taxes and licenses, which will enable government and other stakeholders to potentially repair the damage or the damages that may be caused by, their sort of like the manufacturing process. So thinking a bit broadly about who the stakeholders are and thinking about how each decision we make affects these stakeholders, I think is the one maybe more straightforward way that MSMEs, who may not have all the complex accounting and regulatory management practices that maybe bigger firms can. It could be a simple approach for MSMEs to think about this. And I'm not being unrealistic or non-pragmatic. Indeed, it may not be possible to do this all the time. It may not be possible to absolutely optimize for all stakeholders all the time. And it may require additional costs as well in the near term, if we're being honest. But there's increasing evidence that taking this total societal impact approach, also known as sort of like having ESG considerations in the way that we do things, is really the only way to build businesses that can be sustainable in the long term. So at this point, I'll hand over to my other panelists, and I look forward to discussing this further. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Tolu. We quickly move on to Mrs. Rukaya El-Rufai. She will be talking to us about how to develop a result-driven ESG agenda for MSMEs to enhance their competitive positioning for sustainable value creation. It is after all the panelists must have made their submissions before we move into the Q&A. So I'd like to quickly hand over to Mrs. El-Rufai. Mrs. El-Rufai, please.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Permit me to stand on existing protocol. As Dr. Dada mentioned, I would be discussing, how MSMEs can develop a results-driven ESG agenda, to enhance competitiveness for sustainable value creation. So let me start by buttressing what Mr. Oyekan mentioned. MSMEs play a critical role in the economy. He's given some statistics, but I would also add more. When you look at globally, MSMEs represent 90% of businesses, 50% of employment. In emerging economies, they contribute to as high as 40% of national income. Coming down specifically to Nigeria, the NBS puts the figure of their contribution to GDP at about 50%. And, they represent 50% of the industrial jobs. We heard, at the keynote speech where, the SDG on industrialization was mentioned. So they're critical in helping us, achieve value add and move beyond resource-dependent export. They contribute significantly to jobs. Dr. Oyekan has already spoken a lot on that. But let me deep dive into our PwC MSME survey, which we did in 2020, where we engaged over 16,000 MSMEs in Nigeria, because I'm going to talk about competitiveness. So it's important we understand the challenges from a factual standpoint and directly from their feedback. So the first challenge they mentioned is access to finance. The second is finding customers. The third is infrastructure deficit. The fourth, insufficient cash flow, multiple taxation, competition, unskilled workforce, advancement in technology and technology disruptions, regulatory challenges, especially bureaucracy, corruption, among others. But the principal challenge they mentioned is MSMEs. I mean, when you look at these challenges, I can link them to ESG. Because when you look at ESG and the role it plays, currently the world is undergoing an economic revolution. Because the linear models with built economy has been unsustainable, it's produced adverse and unwanted consequences. That's why, even the World Economic Forum is pushing for something called stakeholder capitalism, because ideally businesses should exist for society. Businesses exist to provide societal needs. So, stakeholder capitalism moves away that thinking of existing for just shareholders to also considering stakeholders. So you're meant to strike that balance of share value creation, where you try to create value for your enterprise, while at the same time, you're creating value for the society. And given the importance MSMEs play, you can't, like Mr. Oyeka mentioned, you can't achieve ESG and sustainable development without actually carrying MSMEs along. It's a question, in fact, even yesterday I was asked this question. It's something I was facilitating, if it's relevant, if ESG is relevant for MSMEs. It is relevant because people often misunderstand ESG to recycling or climate action. Or ESG is about value creation, it's about longevity, it's about inclusiveness, it's about impact, where you're trying to maximize your positive impact and you're trying to minimize your negative impact, such as waste, such as the carbon emissions and all. Even as a government with growing economy, the way you plan, you should grow with low carbon intensity. So, on this basis, you can see that they're critical, and each MSME needs to have an ESG agenda. And ESG is about integration. You have to integrate it into your strategy, your products. That's where the innovation comes in, markets, and you have to also integrate it into your operations. You have to integrate it into your reporting and communication. There are tons of benefits. Some have been mentioned earlier, but I'll talk about them in further details. And when you look at what's driving ESG, there is the regulatory push. Young customers, they don't even value ownership. It's more of convenience. It's more they care, as Mr. Oyeka mentioned, where they work. So it's a strong is a strong tool for employee engagement as well, beyond even attracting the right talent and retention, but it's a strong way to engage employees as well. Investors are becoming committed. One of the major challenge we saw is the challenge of accessing finance. The impact investing pool is so huge. Investors now want to go beyond financial performance. They also want to make impact. They want to contribute to climate change. They want to see governance strengthened, especially in our kind of markets. We saw the challenges of bureaucracy. We saw the challenges of corruption, there's just that huge impact pool. Climate finance is huge. We saw the amount that has been contributed and pledged to helping decarbonization agenda. There's just a lot of finance, concessionary finance, out there for MSMEs to access. So, it's really important, beyond the top line growth that MSMEs can gain, they can reduce costs. Imagine if you deploy more circular logistics models where you leverage sharing economies. Imagine if you go on renewable power. People that have actually tried to incorporate renewable energy would be smiling now early, because we're seeing the rising cost of diesel with the uncertainty happening. Each MSME, because it helps you with managing your dependencies on raw materials, which is a public good. There is the compliance. It would help you with compliance because the G is so strong on that. We already mentioned employee productivity and optimizing investments as well. Yeah. So in terms of another strong part of, another strong benefit is brand reputation. It gives you the social license to operate as well. And we are seeing how intangible asset makes a huge chunk of capitalization and valuation. And investors were seeing growing request of ESG due diligence. No one wants to put in his money if he doesn't understand the ESG risks being faced. So, these are our new normal. That's just the honest truth. So it's not even a choice, but more often you see with the maturity. So it's for an MSME to decide where they want to be on the maturity curve of ESG. And typically the extreme is you want to, the extreme is doing nothing. And of course you will experience value erosion. Then some people choose to be at compliance level where they're just having value protection. But the most and best form is value creation, where you try to lead, and this thing. So now I'm going to the very practical side of this. I would like to answer how MSMEs can develop a results-driven ESG agenda. Like I mentioned earlier, it's not something for greenwashing or this. If you truly want to achieve value creation, you have to integrate it. So you have to embed it into your strategy. You have to have your plan, which you would implement, your tracking results, and you're also reporting and engaging stakeholders. So let me start by the first one. Okay, I think my time is up. So the first is to establish baseline of your business and your operating model, and you have to engage your stakeholders so you understand their expectations. You define your targets and your aspirations across the ESG areas. Economy is a critical part as well, because you have to be still profitable and you have to be able to contribute to the economy of your host country. You now integrate it, you have a roadmap, and of course you have how to track. But the very important thing to bear in mind is you have to get specific. You have to prioritize what's material to your business in line with your stakeholder expectations of what value means for them. You have to be very practical, especially for your size of your business and all. You have to be practical, get everyone on board, have a clear blueprint that everyone understands, and you have to get real. You have to appraise it honestly, and you have to take on the learnings, and you have to have transparent communication on your ESG journey. And another important thing I would like to mention as a benefit is access to markets, which was touched on at the beginning. Because global supply chains and value chains are becoming sustainable. So if you want to truly key into value chains, even with agricultural produce, there's responsible sourcing frameworks. So ESG, is imperative. And in conclusion, it's for everybody, even individuals. You have to have sustainable lifestyle. Governments have to build economies sustainably. Businesses have to run sustainably. And so this thing, and with MSMEs, social enterprise, there's a lot happening around social enterprise across those areas that Mr. Oyeka mentioned on waste, more secular models. And, they're more agile. MSMEs are more agile to actually innovate and help us have and find, practical solutions to the big societal challenges we're facing, including climate change and climate tech and so on. So thank you very much. I'm happy to answer to questions and discuss this further. Over to you, Dr. Dada.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you very much, Mrs. Rukayat El-Rufai. Thank you for your thoughts. We'll quickly flip over to Dr. Bumi Kole Daudu, Assistant Director of SMIDAN. SMIDAN is the agency that drives SMEs in Nigeria. He will be talking about creating long-term value through ESG for MSMEs. Dr. Kole Daudu, please.
Thank you very much, Dr. Dada, for this wonderful opportunity. Permits me to stand on the existing protocol. I just want to go straight to the point. Some weeks back, I was reading I was going through my Twitter handle, and then I saw a comment, and the person said Japan has more than 30,000 businesses that are 100 years old, which is the highest in the world. And then the reason they survived so long is not that they grew large and dominant, but they remain small and specialized. And another valid point he said was that they gave up speed and growth for sustainability. I mean, with some lasting about 1,000 years. Well, just to go straight to the point, creating long-term value through ESG for MSMEs, a lot of things are in place. Yeah, no, just like Mrs. Rukayat El-Rufai said, everybody needs to be sustainable. Sustainability seems to be the watchword, the key point right now. And it is what propels, MSMEs at this time when you have great challenges and all that. So how do you create value? That should be the first point. How do you create value as an MSME, or create an ESG value, so to say? Companies, businesses have to communicate concisely their strategies. You need to watch out your strategies, governance, your performances, prospects, operating environment. A lot of things need to be put in place, and then you can now decide how to start, either in the short term, creating value in the short term, or in the medium term, and then and then the long term, should be the final point. But what I mean to say is that at this point, MSMEs should have a report, their plan for moving forward, for inculcating ESG into their businesses, into their work. So of course that's why I said that they need to talk about their operation, their performance, the environment, and then decide which of the steps of the value they need to do, either short term, medium term, or the long term. And then every business seems to have that the elements of ESG intertwined. They are all coming together. Some overlap. The social, sometimes you see overlapping with governance and all that. So a consideration of how MSMEs will put that together is utmost important, of course, which is aimed at sustainability. And then I also want to mention that though Mr. Tolu Oyeko and Rukayat have mentioned it, it makes sense to have a strong ESG proposition with the aim of creating value. You talk about your environment, how that work well with your business. You talk about the socials, which is your workers, stakeholders, and all that, and then you put them together with not flaunting rules or regulations, observing labor laws, and then with the aim of creating that great value. ESG is an important part of business, which has been mentioned, and its elements are also things to consider for SMEs. Most SMEs feel some part of, well, particularly for Nigeria, I'm speaking from the Sweden point of view, a lot of them feel that government should do a lot, government should create enabling environment, government should help sort out bottlenecks in running businesses. All these are important though, because of course it also contributes to, part of the elements of the ESG. But SMEs would have to work out some important plans for themselves. I'll mention a few now because I mean I was reading through a particular journal by McKinsey, and then he mentioned how to create long-term value. What are the elements involved? And then he mentioned 5, which I'm going to just talk about here. And one of them is top line growth. That means if you have to grow, attract businesses to yourself, customers with more sustainable products, and then achieve better access to resources through stronger community and government relation. And then it's mentioned cost reduction, which is also a very important, a vital element in the 5 points of creating value. And then if we have to cut down on energy consumption, reduce water intake, combat waste and all that. And then regulatory and legal intervention, he said achieve greater strategic freedom through deregulation, and then end subsidies and government support. Then there's productivity uplift, which says boost employee motivation, attracts talent through greater social credibility. And one watchword here is that what to do to create long-term value? What do you do? What are the necessary steps? And then here it is important that we know that you do good for your business and your community first, because why do we even go into business in the first place? Okay, a lot of people say, oh, it's because you want to make profits. But you see, when you don't satisfy people, you don't satisfy the need of people, there's no way you can make that profit. So first of all, you need to consider, your customer, the stakeholders, the people that you're targeting. Then you also need to raise awareness about ESG. Most MSMEs need to do that, raise awareness for ESG factors, and then collect ESG data, because a lot of us work without data in this part of the world. We work without data, and this data are so important for us to for us to move forward, for us to be sustainable, for us to get to that level where things work together. Some work together for good, so to say. And then we could also do a stakeholder engagement forum where data are shared, where challenges solutions to challenges are preferred, and then some reports are developed for reference sake for another time. And then we also need to manage our initiative for maximum impact. I think Ruka, if I mentioned that, we need to manage initiative for maximum impact, because the impact matters a lot. Then also, we also need to tackle increased pressure on ESG. A lot of people talk about ESG lately. To some people, it's still vague. They don't understand. So performance and disclosure with like leading one-stop shop, have town hall meeting where SMEs or MSMEs are briefed or given information on ESG, and then we'll manage data, like I said earlier, reports, and then get expert insights into it. Then there's sustainability management platform for ESG reporting as well. A cross-section of MSMEs need to have a regular data bank where information, where thoughts, where understanding, where people can pull out something to learn from. Okay, a regular reporting. That's what I mean. And then maybe I should talk about the ESG report so that our MSMEs can handle. It's a more encompassing report than a business report, because it creates values for businesses, for their stakeholders, for communities, for customers, for employees, for government, for investors, for regulators and suppliers. So regular reports and then reporting is very important. And then to create ESG long-term value for MSMEs, some points are pertinent that we need to note. One of them is the growth in revenue. MSMEs should have a data of growth in revenue. Most of them have not updated data from experience. And then enhanced public image, that's awareness, which I mentioned earlier. Then long-term sustainability plan, and then optimizing capital expenditure, increase employee productivity, reduce costs or risk, and then better compliance with regulatory guidelines. All this form, the ESG plan for MSMEs. At this time, I will stop, and then I'm sure that I'm behind time, but that's most of the things that I have to say. Mr. Oyeko and Mrs. Erufai has said a bit of them, and then I'll wait for questions. Thank you. Over to you, Dr. Dada.
Yes. Thank you very, very much, Dr. Olubunmi Kole-Dawudu. When Mrs. Rukayat Erufai talked about the survey they had in 2020, access to finance was top of the range for MSMEs. That's why we brought in Dr. Chidozie Ezike, who has all those financial, information to quickly discuss this morning the financial services that are offered to support ESG practices in micro, small, and medium enterprises. So I'd like to call on Dr. Chidozie Ezike to share with us his thoughts. Dr. Ezike, please.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me to be a part of this panel, and I'm super excited to be here. So please permit me to piggyback on the protocol that Dr. Dada, Tolu, Rukayat, and others have already set. So I would like to quickly take this from a slightly different way, because the previous speakers have already set the tone. They've already, spoken to, should I say, the theoretical basis or the background to what is being done. So my job now is a bit easy. So I'm just going to share our ESG practices at UBA and pick out lessons that MSMEs can learn from what we have done, and also show the opportunities in terms of financing and banking, and the proposition that MSMEs can easily have access to, but certain things need to be done for this access to be fully taken advantage of. So how do we look at ESG? So for us, ESG is about sustainability, and sustainability is meeting the needs of the present without compromising the ability of the future generation to meet their own needs. So what that means is that we must have great leadership, a good mix of talent, have global insights, change strategies that will be necessary for us to continue to do business despite current challenges as well as future ones. So why do we care about ESG as a bank? Now, if you look at the banking industry, you will see that about 40% of the loan exposure are to transition sectors. And transition sectors here are sectors that are likely going to be affected by the gradual, or should I say swift, shift away from fossil fuel to less carbon emitting energies or ways of doing business. And that is a major conversation for banks in Nigeria and elsewhere in the world. And that in itself brings the conversation around ESG into more focus. And we look at it from the prisms of the risk and the opportunities that also follow. Now, from the risk part of it, having an improper ESG practice could actually be a major cost issue for you. So for instance, we have heard about carbon pricing, carbon tax. These are not enforced in Nigeria yet, but elsewhere in the world, we know that these are very, very, very much enforced. For instance, the average ton, carbon tax per ton in the UK is roughly around 212 pounds, and it varies. In some countries, is as low as $50, while in others is as high as $500. So this can be a major cost to your business. But if you switch and do the right things, look at the right principles, then you can enjoy cost efficiency, because you can actually get lower cost by having a more efficient utilization of electricity, closing early, reducing your waste, and all that. Another risk that we see from ESG is liquidity risk. So your sources of liquidity as a financial institution or as a business can easily dry up just because you haven't triggered the right processes in terms of your ESG practices. But if you switch that and put the right things in place, you will see that you will have maximum access to financing, and that would also lead to revenue growth. And we are going to show some of the things we have done and still doing to ensure that we are able to attract the monies or the finances and investments out there, but are benchmarked against ESG. We have the sustainability bonds, we have the green bonds, we have the social bonds, we have the blue bonds. These are all sources that you can tap in, but your ESG practice must be right. Then there's the reputational risk that comes with ESG. And that can also have a major issue, like Rukaya said, your brand reputation is a social capital, and you shouldn't joke with that. So if you flip it well and do your ESG right, then the confidence of your customers will be boosted. And that is why at UBA, we focus on C first. So we put the customers first at everything we do. And that is how we try to demonstrate that our ESG practices are actually in line with what it should be. And we are taking that and using it as our competitive advantage. Another risk we see is the regulatory risk. Previous speakers have highlighted regulation. Some do ESG or sustainability just because they want to meet regulation, or some guidelines or some clauses contained in their financing contracts. But that is not how we see it. For us, it's a way of life. So it has become the way we do things. And I'm going to share some of the things we have done to demonstrate that. And embedding ESG into the risk management framework and the risk management process generally is a very critical thing. Tolu mentioned it, Rukayat mentioned it, and everybody have emphasized it. And it is a critical thing. Your risk appetite must have an ESG component, and your measurement, your board, your management, everybody must be clearly in line with what your thinking on ESG is about. Then the most important is the employees. How, if your ESG is not right, then you will suffer a great amount of employee attrition. Nobody wants to work for an organization that does not respect him or her, that does not have courtesy, and does not believe in the dignity of work. So the great place to work is, the great place to work is that place where your opinion, your work, your life matter. And we look into this, and for us, we take it seriously. We have our surveys, and that is how we like to think of ESG, and that is how we also drive our sustainability agenda. So when I say ESG is at the heart of our operation, it's simply because we focus on 4 pillars at UBA. We look at environmental action, we look at economic resilience, we look at leadership and governance, and we look at an inclusive society. That is the ultimate goal. We need to contribute and build an inclusive society where nobody is left behind in the development agenda. And that is what we see. And that is our thinking when it comes to creating, financing, and doing our job as financial intermediary. So in the space of the environment, that is the E in the ESG. So E represents the environmental aspect or indicators of the ESG. And what have we done? So the first thing that we have done in that space is to set targets and also measure the targets, particularly as it relates to the transition and the physical risk and opportunities that face us and our customers. Why our customers? Because without the customers, there's really no need for us to exist. So without the MSMEs, the private entities, there is really no bank. So we focus on trying to understand what is, how physical and transition risk would and is affecting those customers. Then we pursue a broader net zero target, applying through, thorough and appropriate, methodologies. Now, the idea is to actually know where you are, and that is what Rukayat referred to when she said baselining. So you need to know where you are today, and then set your targets to understand how you are progressing in the pursuit of achieving the net zero targets by 2050, 2060, as some people would like to put in place. Now, for the practicality of all these, remember we are a bank, so one of the things we do is to create loans. And that process of creating loans, which is also a major part of the conversation today, because the PwC research says access to finance is the #1 challenge MSMEs face. So what we watch out for when we want to extend credit or give a loan to a customer is to screen the customer's request and also the promoter against what we call our exclusion list. So this exclusion list is a list of the kind of businesses we will not do. And these businesses are largely businesses that are anti-ESG. So when I say anti-ESG, I just refer to things that are not sustainable largely, things that are not ethical, things that are not progressive to human society. So we try to screen this request against those metrics. Then we carry out an assessment and categorize the risk we see into 3 buckets of, A, B, C, meaning high, medium, and low. And based on that, we are able to then say, okay, we can progress if we can put this and that in place. And most of the time, all we try to say is, ensure that you have adequate permits. Tolu mentioned that you must have the right license to do the business you want to do. You must be seen to have a good tax. You must be in good state when it comes to your tax position, because that is also good for the society. And you must also not be seen to be carrying out businesses that are going to erode the integrity of the environment or endanger aquatic lives or biomass. So we try to put that in place and advise the customers on what to do and what not to do. And once those are checked off and met, and you commit to regular reporting, then that is all we need for you to have access to the loan that you seek. And so many other engagement that we'll carry out with our customers. Now, that is us looking at it from the outside in. So there are two perspectives to looking at it when it comes to us. We like to look at it from the outside in and from the inside out. So the outside in is what is happening externally that would affect us as a bank, while the inside out is what we are doing that will affect the external environment where we do business. So we try to set targets for and measure our scope 1, 2, 3 emissions, and also try to ensure that we put in place effective water management and waste management. The idea is to consume responsibly, which is one of the SDG goals that we commit to. We are also interested in what our vendors are doing. The process of vendor selection requires that we ensure that they are abiding by the ethical codes that guide what they do, and they are also in line with our ESG specifications. And we try to also pay visits to our customers to see what they are doing, because Tolu said greenwashing is not really the best approach to achieving the net zero target. So you need to be sure that you are doing what you say you would do, and also that your third party or your customers are also doing what they said they are doing, your vendors, your contractors, etc. And there are challenges. So this is not all rosy. There are challenges in getting these things done. Like it has been emphasized, some small business owners really do not have capacity to fully integrate this whole process into their ways of doing business yet. So it's a bit difficult getting them to report as agreed, but we try to encourage them and give them multiple, choices and multiple ways, different ways that they can go about doing this and reporting. So let's jump straight into the S. So the S is the social part of ESG. So looking at it from inside out, we ensure that one, our customers, I can't stop emphasizing the fact of the customer first, because that is all it is for us, are getting the value that we promised that we promised in our proposition and in our commitment to them at all times. And we also ensure that our employees understand the need to do the right thing and also get rewarded appropriately. And we listen, and that is very critical. So we have the GPW survey, that is the Great Place to Work survey, that we conduct to get feedback from our employees to understand exactly what they are thinking. And in the last one, over 66% of our employees actually believe that UBA is a great place to work. And that is just us scratching the surface. Our target is to raise that to 100%, and not just by wishing, but by doing, getting the feedback and also moving ahead with it. Then inclusive society, we have different products that we have launched. We have our products that are largely technology-based. One of such product to me is my best friend, Leo. Leo is one of our social platforms that you can transact with. And the idea is to ensure financial inclusion. So no matter where you are in the world, you can actually go ahead and carry out your transaction. So there is inclusion. And we have numerous propositions for different levels of customers, different MSMEs. We have the partnerships to drive this. We have propositions. We have products, working capital product, largely dedicated to SMEs and to women. So you see, to ensure that gender inclusiveness is part of the things we preach, we ensure that we focus all around. Then the COVID-19, like Dr. Dada said, taught us a great lesson, and the world has changed since then, and we have changed along with the world, ensuring that we keep our customers and staff in tune and apprised of all events in that space, and ensuring that people are staying safe and doing the right thing. Now, governance, that is the big G in ESG. And for me, that is all about ensuring that we have the proper risk oversight, governance oversight, board and management oversight over what we do. And also ensuring that we follow the right standards, we follow the right laws, local laws in where we operate, and also set the right risk management framework to guide what we do. And what have we done to ensure that all these are practical? One, we have a foundation dedicated to ESG, sustainability, and CSR. And we donated over 5.1 billion to sustainability activities in 2020. Over 85% paper consumption reduction, over 56% reduction in water consumption, 42% increase in our ATM powered by cleaner and alternative energy sources, 9% reduction in our electricity consumption, that is speaking to our scope 2, and over 84% of our staff trained on ESG matters. Specifically for loans, we have over $35 million on lending in green finance available for MSMEs to take, but particularly when it comes to energy efficiency. Over 100 billion of our loans were to SMEs in 2020, and we have upped that to over 1 trillion naira for 2022. And that is a significant leap. So for us, it's all about focusing on the triple bottom lines, focusing on our people, making profits today, tomorrow, and in decades to come, without compromising the integrity of the planet. And what are the key lessons? The key lessons that I think the MSMEs should take away from this is that you must have governance in place. It is very critical. You must record and measure your impact. So in everything you do, if you have just 50 employees, record it. If you're able to switch from, diesel price is very prohibitive now. So you want to cut that down as much as you can. So you have to record your savings, your cost processes. You must have your risk management properly integrated and properly documented, articulated so that you can easily present it to anybody, any investor or financier that you're working up to. Then there must be collaboration and partnership, and that is what we do a lot. We have collaboration with embassies, DFI, PCAF, and what we are doing here today is one of such collaborations. And we also have avenues and platforms where SMEs are given different types of toolkits that they can use to progress their businesses. Then reporting is very critical. Internal and external reporting is essential. But the greatest lesson for me is that ESG is not a one-man business. It is not a single unit or single department function. Everybody in your organization must be part of it. The HR, the customer service, the operations team, the business team, the marketers, everybody must be part of your ESG journey. And that, for me, is very critical. And given all what we have done, we have received some awards, all over Africa. And I think that shows that ESG, like Tolu said, is a major business prompter or enabler. Thank you, everyone. I think I should stop here now and wait for the questions.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Dr. Ezike. Thank you very, very much. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, that is our concluding discussion. I'd just like to do a quick summary and we will take questions. I already have an avalanche of questions here, but we'll try and manage time. We only have about about 20 minutes to go. So we'll try and be very, very snappy. Thank you once again, our distinguished panelists, very deep and insightful. Starting with Tolu, I just picked some words here that I find very, very important. Tolu said, ESG practices are tangible and not out of the world. They are tangible and not out of the world. In other words, they are things that can be done without so much stress as some of us imagine. He also said that given the role the MSMEs play in job creation, innovation, and all of that, we had the president of NBCC reel out those statistics. And I think that was also alluded to by Rukayat, as well as other speakers. We must continue to look at what MSMEs do, because without the MSMEs playing crucial role in the area of job creation and innovation will be very, very low and very ineffective. So we must move forward looking at our ESG practices. Mrs. Rukayat Rufai talked about so many things. In fact, talking about businesses existing not just for shareholders, but for society as well. Talking about ESG and value creation, both in the short and in the long term, brand building and all of that, very, very important. And one thing I also picked is that ESG, from what she said, should be integrated and woven into all our operations. Very, very important, because ultimately the results will show either by way of cost reduction or enhancement in product offerings and so on and so forth. And she did say very strongly too, that ESG is not a choice. It is not a choice. If we do nothing, there will be value erosion. And I think that is quite strong. For Dr. Kole Daudu, also he was able to, orchestrate again most of these points that have been said. But one thing that came out quite clearly, he said, most of us as MSMEs, we tend to over-rely on government to drive ESG for us. And he says we should have a rethink. And I think that's food for thought. Our over-reliance on the government to drive ESG framework and policies. Finally, he talked about data and reporting. Very, very important, because it's a journey. And so you need to track, you need to monitor, and therefore he talked about the importance of data and reporting in order to sustain long-term value for ESGs, practices for our MSMEs. Now, for Dr. Chidozie Ezike, again, from the financial perspective, I was able to pick a few things. And it is now clear that as MSMEs, our risk appetite must have an ESG component. Our risk appetite must have an ESG component. Maybe that's why some of the proposals we sent to the banks are turned down. So that's a key learning. And finally, he said, our funding must always look at the environment, the society, and governance principles for us to be able to make any headway. Otherwise, it will not fly when we make our proposals to the banks. I think these are some of the key things that have been said. And thank you very much once again. A number of questions have come through. And in order to manage the 15 or so minutes that we have left, I would like to just mention some of these questions and perhaps distribute them among our panelists so that they can give us a very, very short and quick answer. The first question is from Olugbemi Fernandez. Olugbemi Fernandez directed his question to Dr. Daudu. And he says, what assistance does SMIDAN offer to MSMEs in order to boost their ESG practices. What assistance does SMIDAN offer to MSMEs to boost their ESG practices? The second question is from Isikilu Salami. Isikilu Salami directed his question to Dr. Ezike, and he said, why are banks not, and telcos, he tied banks to telcos, why are banks and telcos not using solar operations in most of your branches? And we're talking about, ESG. He said he should start with the banks, that most of the banks and telcos do not use solar. He's asking why. Again, Sali Susani, so that is directed to Ezike. Sali Susani sent in this question. He says, how can ESG be applicable in Nigeria, seeing all the challenges that we have? Seeing all the challenges that we have. I would like to direct that to Tolu, please, to answer Sali Susani, that we already have enough challenges. Why are you bothering yourself with ESG for MSMEs? And then this one will go to Mrs. Rukayat El Rufai. The gentleman is saying that the digital transformation market is fast expanding. What would be your advice to MSMEs to key into this technological space in order to up their ante? The digital transformation market is fast expanding. What would be your advice to MSMEs? How can they key into this space to increase their performance and to become more innovative? So let's quickly take these questions one after the other. Let's start with Tolu.
Thank you, Dr. Dada, for the questions, and thanks to everyone who raised questions. If I heard correctly, my question is really around, why are we thinking about ESG in Nigeria and for MSMEs, given the challenges that we are already dealing with? I think there are, two ways to maybe think about it. So there are some investors, and there's some reasons why there may be compliance requirements for ESG, right? And oftentimes, a lot of those compliance requirements, in fact, are not applicable to MSMEs. So, that is not what I'm talking about, in fact. There's another side of this, which is, why and how ESG considerations allow us as businesses to build for the long term. The DG from SMIDAN gave examples of companies in the world that are 1,000-year-old and older. When he said that, I Googled one of those companies, in fact, a construction company that is 1,400 years old, right? So I think we should sort of think about about paying attention to total societal impact and sustainability as a way to sort of build for the long haul. And if we are considering how the business choices we're making, how they affect all of the other stakeholders that are involved within our ecosystem, then more than likely we're building for the long haul. If we are compliant with the rule of law, the chances are low that that government or someone will come at us for breaking some rule. If we are treating our people the right way, the chances are higher that we will be a good employer and people want to work with us, and our productivity will be higher if we are building products and services that don't have any hidden negative side effects of consumption. Then customers will sort of stick with us. So I think thinking a bit more around building for the long term, I think that mindset is something that applies to everybody in every country of the world, whether you're a small business or a large business. So I think if we take it that way, that I think MSMEs in Nigeria need to pay attention to this. But I agree that there may be some compliance requirements and some ESG compliance requirements that may not be as applicable for MSMEs. I hope that was responsive to the question that was raised. I'll hand over to my other panelists to answer the other questions. Over.
Okay, Mrs. Rufai, you want to take your own part of the question?
Yes, I'm very happy to. Actually, it's good that you directed that to me because I'm a disruption enthusiast. So basically, if you remember at the beginning, I mentioned we're undergoing an economic revolution. Of course, we are going through the fourth industrial revolution. So, I mean, digitization is just, and digital leadership is absolutely important. And, you know, the good thing is the technologies and the innovations springing up, there is a solution for everyone. You know, you don't have to be a big company to actually be a digital leader. And when you look at, even with industrialization, the way you need to assesses and ranks the top industrialized nations, they look at high-tech manufacturing as well. And I look at some of the challenges being faced, digital platforms and digital solutions probably are the way, because as an MSME, you can leverage, you can access markets through digital platforms. You can have your digital channels. You can automate repeatable processes. If you remember from the survey, one of the things that came out is skills. And I remember we did an industrial plan for a state. And when we did the mega trends analysis, what came out was clearly you know, high-tech manufacturing and sharing economies, sharing platforms as well, which, you know, which is highly enabled by tech. So, and of course, digital skills is crucial here. But there are platforms to leverage, there are accelerator programs, there are accelerator infrastructure that MSMEs can actually leverage. But I would suggest also putting on a digital lens to see how you can digitize your business, because it's a big value driver. And don't forget, with sustainability, you're looking at your various forms of capital that create value for you. So natural capital, human capital, your IP, intellectual properties, you're looking at your technology capital and all that. So if you truly want to do the strategy, you actually assess all your various forms of capital. So digital is a critical lens as well to take. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I agree totally with you. Digital is a new thing, and the revolution has started. There is no going back. So I guess it's something that we as MSMEs should key into and key into very fast. Thank you very much. Now, I'll quickly want to go over to Dr. Daudu in just 1 minute. Says, what assistance does SMIDAN offer MSMEs in order to help them develop their ESG practices? Very quickly, just 1 or 2 minutes. We're running quite short of time.
Thank you so much, Dr. Dada. And honestly, fantastic question. But first thing first, if you have noticed, a large portion of MSMEs in Nigeria are not aware of ESG. So first thing first, we need to create that awareness. That's what SMIDAN does. Okay, create the awareness, get you involved in understanding that whatever practice, whatever thing that you do, of course, you need to factor in the ESG factors into it. So this is one thing first, you know, creating an awareness. Then SMIDAN does mentoring, business clinic, which of course gives the platform for MSMEs to get first-hand tutoring on the ESG elements and how it's contribute to sustainability of whatever MSMEs do. So I think that has
all right. I think what this is saying to us is that you're already giving us invitation to come back to you for some more contacts and discussions. So please, we'll be coming back to you because, like you said, awareness creation, mentoring, and all of these things, will need to be further, expanded on. So we'll be coming back to you. Finally, Dr. Ezike, very quickly in 1 minute, banks, telcos, why are you guys not using solar?
Thank you. My video is not coming on. I think I need you to enable that.
No, please, we can hear you. At least the audio is clear.
Okay, perfect. So it's an interesting question from Kelu Salami. Well, organizations are gradually turning to solar as an alternative source. For instance, in my presentation, I mentioned that over 40% of our ATMs are now powered by alternative sources of energy outside diesel power generators and all that. And it's even a cost measure for banks to try to switch to more sustainable sources. So in addition to that, banks are even developing greener buildings, efficient buildings. They have sensor-powered lighting systems in their buildings. Like if you come to UBA, you will see that all over. Even the taps, the faucet taps are also sensor controlled to minimize utilization of water and all that. So I think it's something that organizations will shift quickly to as the technology gets matured and cheaper, because you need to look at the cost of acquisition as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very, very much. On this note, we would like to bring this to a close, but permit me to answer a question from Lanre Abidoye. Lanre Abidoye says, are there regulations in Nigeria that mandate reporting of ESG performance? And what are these regulations? And I must say that the NCCG Code 2018, the Nigerian Corporate Governance Code, Corporate Conduct Governance Code, NCCG 2018, has all of these things stated there. So please, Mr. Abidoye, if you just is a public document, if you can lay your hand on the NCCG Code 2018, it has spelled out all of these things. And I guess it's a question of time before compliance becomes a big issue. But some of these things have been stated there. Thank you very much, distinguished panelists. Thank you very much for giving a good account of yourselves. We have thoroughly been enlightened further by your discussions and your suggestions. And we look forward to taking it up to the next level and working with you going forward. Thank you very much. I would like to quickly call on our Vice President, Mr. Akin Oshutoki, who would give his vote of thanks on behalf of the Council and then round it all up for us. Mr. Akin Oshutoki, Vice President, Nigerian-British Chamber of Commerce. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Dr. Dada. Without a doubt, it's been a wonderful session. My task is the easy one. I'd like to give a vote of thanks and make a few announcements. Let me start by thanking the speakers, Mr. Tolu Oyekon, Mr. Chidoze Ezike, Ms. Rukaya El-Rufai, and Mr. Kole Dawodu Olubumi. I must thank you for your contributions
We must also thank our moderator, Dr. Joe Dada. Excellent job, Dr. Joe. Excellent job. Let me also thank our patrons and council members who are on this call. I'd like to thank our sponsors, Brentville Limited. Thank you for sponsoring. Ladies and gentlemen, the MSME committee, thank you so much. And indeed, the NBCC headquarters staff, thank you so much for putting this together. We had a very great time all through the webinar. Now, I would like to announce some upcoming events. The first event that we have coming up is another in our Sharing Experiences series. We are looking at creating impact. Our guest speaker is Mrs. Adenike Ogunlesi, founder of Rough and Tumble. Moderating is our own Mr. Bayo Rotimi, the MD of Greenwich. Please join us. I assure you that it will be a time well spent. We also have a business cocktail coming up on Friday, May 6th. May I quickly add that it is strictly by invitation. It's strictly by invitation. That cocktail is slated for 6 p.m. Friday, May 6th. Also, the NBCC Learning and Development Week is scheduled for May 16th, all through to May 20th. That is one event you don't want to miss. A whole week of learning, May 16th to May 20, 2022. If you are interested in becoming a member of our chamber, please visit our website, and also you can send us an email as well. Finally, please follow us on our social media platforms. And I'm happy to say that we have several other programs all lined up all through the year, which will be coming from time to time. Please accept our invitations and be a part of our events, of our future events. Once again, it's been a great time on behalf of the President and Chairman of Council, Mrs. Bisi Adeyemi, and indeed the entire member of the Nigerian-British Chamber of Commerce. I want to say a big thank you for being with us this morning. Thank you very much, and God bless you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Online or in real life, relationships develop in the same way. You get to know someone, like him or her, before you give them your trust. We believe that everyone prefers to do business with people they trust. To stay competitive and thrive, companies need to become more active in finding reliable business partners. However, trust is hard to develop. It depends on deliverability, accountability, and transparency. Traditionally, we have business in two ways. Through personal contacts, where it is easier to generate trust but takes a lot of time and effort, or online, at a bigger scale, but it's much more difficult to generate trust. So how do we get the best of both worlds? With Connex. Connex has the delivery power of a digital platform combined with the accountability and transparency of trusted personal connections. It is moderated by local chambers of commerce who know their members and ensure that they exist. Users can rely on their moderator to ask assistance for a project or request a proper introduction to another member. For your members, Connex is 100% focused on business development, local market knowledge for all members provided by local chambers, building trust through participation and reputation. For every chamber on Connects, it will help you retain existing members and recruit new members, strengthen collaboration with your peers from other chambers, generate additional revenue streams. Join us now and help us create a business world without barriers for everyone.